So, embracing the React fatigue. Is anyone here React developer? Not bad, not bad. Does anyone here like beer? Yeah? Okay, so if you're wondering what's the link between these two, maybe you've heard about this game. This is called the NPM drinking game. And basically you will think of any word in English, and if it exists on NPM, then you drink. It sounds really fun, actually, but I would strongly advise you against playing it, because this is the #1 reason we cannot find developers nowadays. All of the ones that tried it, they've failed in tragic consequences. But thanks to that, we know about the JavaScript fatigue. So JavaScript fatigue is basically a term that emerged a few years ago. And it's to say that we have so many frameworks, so many libraries, design patterns, so-called good practices coming all the time in JS world, that it gets really crazy to keep up, and it's impossible. And every developer has desire to keep up, and you'll fall imposter syndrome. Furthermore, if you're a beginner, the entry barrier is higher and higher as time goes, because you need to learn about tooling, so you need to learn about Webpack, you need to learn about Babel. Possibly you need to learn about superset like TypeScript or Flow. And this makes it really hard to get started. Now I think that in React we have the same problem, and I would call that React fatigue. So yeah, you don't have to Google it because literally no one talks about it. There's one guy in 2016 that posted a comment. I mean, 41 class is quite nice. But that's the only guy, basically, that talks about it. But I think we experience the same problem, and even worse, in the React community, about burning out, because, that's my theory, we have very influential voices. So, on the one hand, you have Ryan Dahl, Node.js creator, really smart guy, really good. On the other hand, Dan Abramov, also smart guy, also really good. But one, the community will always follow blindlessly. I'll let you figure out which is which, who is who. Yeah. So, about me, I write magic internet code for Prague. We are a product management system that allows everyone to align on what to build next. And that's really all I have time to say, so if you're curious, just talk to me later on, or on Twitter, 𝗧𝗹𝗸. Now, I'm going to talk to you about CryptoDoggos. So, CryptoDoggos is a 100% real app. I didn't make, okay, maybe I did. It's a way basically to explain to you the React fatigue. But just believe me, just imagine it's a real app and I was trying to put Doggos on blockchain. So, I wanted to put Doggos on blockchain, and I'm a developer. So of course I'm lazy, of course I don't want to learn about DSL, of course I don't like opinionation because I like my liberty, you know, this is America, this is freedom. So, I went with React. But then people were like, man, you need Redux. And I was like, why? Yeah, you need Redux, you need state management. I was fine with React data model, but people told me, no, you need Redux if you want to be a good, you know, hype developer. And of course I wanted to, so yeah, I went with Redux. And then I've heard about Connect through Redux, through React Redux. And so I've heard about HOC, I've learned about higher order functions. And I started using them as a way to do composition in React, because that's, again, what the community was doing. So, I started using HOCs. Now, HOCs get quite messy quite fast. So I started using compose function or flow write if you use Lodash. This is basically a way to achieve composition pipelines in a language that doesn't support it. This was kind of like the praised way to do composition at the time. It's nice, but it doesn't scale. So at some point I was like, yeah, okay, let's use GraphQL. If you're wondering what's the link between all of this, GraphQL basically, it's not just a way to fetch data, but it's also a way to architecture your application, depending on how you use it, especially if you use Apple link state. So I started going full hipster mode, GraphQL, wrapping my HTTP calls with it, and using GraphQL for everything, including state management. But wait, I thought I was okay at that point, and then people were like, man, use Sass, use CSS in 2017, come on. So I started using CSS in JS, right? And yeah, I didn't want to, but again, I wanted to keep up, so yeah. At that point, I seriously thought I was done. Yeah, and then, yeah, this came up. So I started Googling, yeah, context API versus Redux, which is the best. I don't really care about performance, I just wanted, you know, that developer cred. So yeah, started using it. At that point, I actually thought I was done. Yeah, this happened. Hooks, yeah, it's amazing though, it's amazing. Hooks amazing. It's a whole new way to interact with React. It's a new way to do composition. It's functional, it's easily testable, and in my opinion, it's really clean. It makes way more sense for React, but that's not the point. The point is, at that moment in time, my app was just ugly. It had all these conflicting patterns. And yeah, that was me. I was not really happy anymore at that point. And basically, don't go full hipster. That would be the conclusion. Don't go full hipster. So what does that mean? It means keep your application or applications clean. If you want to go with one library, try different things, it's fine, but please keep it to one per pattern. For instance, CSS and JS use emotion or JSS, Linare, whatever. And clean up after you finish. You know, if you don't want to go with one pattern, it's fine, but please clean up your mess, because then it gets really ugly to have all these conflicting patterns in your application. And it's fine to do side projects and try all these things, but again, if you stick to one per pattern, one library, it will be way better for you. And stay curious. You know, it might seem like I'm going against the crazy community we have, but the point is you should embrace it. You should really have an analytic mind on like what's happening in the React world, and try to get the best out of it. And it's okay if you don't always go with the community. If you make your own choices, it's also perfectly fine sometimes. You know, just don't follow everything blindlessly, and it will be amazing. And yeah, that's all.